Social Perspectives, hosted by J. Gentile Everett, is brought to you by the Renaissance Ministry.
Hello and welcome to Social Perspectives. I'm J. Gentile Everett. According to an analysis by the Associated Press, Missouri is one of 10 states since Reconstruction where only white candidates have won contests for president, senator, governor, and other non-judicial offices elected statewide. The others are Alabama, Arkansas, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, Tennessee, West Virginia, Wyoming, and Mississippi, which has the nation's first 2 black senators in the 1870s when those seats were chosen by legislators rather than popularity. Our focus today will be on Mississippi. In the parlance of our social interaction, we are familiar with the term systemic racism, but we might find constitutional racism may be the incubator that nurtures its horror. We'll be right back.
Double Vision RT and Bostic Films are proud to announce that they are currently accepting applicants for various roles for the movie Three Rams and a Hubcap, written by best-selling author Gentile. Please feel free to visit the website at 3ramsandahubcap.com for more information and view methods of submitting your interest. Again, visit 3 Rams and a Hubcap for more information. The producers are standing by.
Welcome back. After the Civil War, Congress acted to prevent Southerners from reestablishing white supremacy. In 1867, the radical Republicans in Congress imposed federal military rule over most of the South. Under the watchful eye of the United States Army, which occupied the region, the former Confederate states wrote new constitutions and were readmitted to the Union, but only after ratifying the 14th Amendment. The Reconstruction Amendment prohibited states from denying equal protection under the law to U.S. citizens, which included the former slaves. In 1870, the 15th Amendment was ratified. It stated that the right of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any other state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. More than 500,000 black men became voters in the South during the 1870s. For the most part, these new black voters cast their ballots solidly for the Republican Party, the party of the great emancipator, Abraham Lincoln. When Mississippi rejoined the Union in 1870, former slaves made up more than half of the state's population. During the next decade, Mississippi sent 2 black U.S. senators to Washington and elected a number of black state officials, including a lieutenant governor. But even though the new black citizen voted freely and in huge number, whites were still elected to a large majority of state and local offices. This was the pattern in most Southern states during Reconstruction. The Reconstruction era ended in 1877, and the federal troops were withdrawn, along with the black men and women's freedom to move around without impediment or obstruction. The newly acquired right to free speech, a fair trial, education for their children, and the privileges and protections all of the rest of America enjoyed were abruptly eviscerated from their coveted society. Institutional slavery had been abolished, but the flashing light of blatant, inhumane treatment had lost its flash and became a constant ray of certainty. These newly freed blacks were again bodily burglarized and their dignity denied. From shackled ankles to a shackled spirit, these souls had to wonder, is there ever any hope for anyone with darker skin? The dreams and aspirations, the birth of the world-changing ideas, the quest and the plight of reaching the highest version of themselves, the interaction with other cultures to move closer to a quintessential humanity, fall outside of the socially permissive acts that was deemed and codified by the dogma of white dissidents who constantly and obviously believed blacks were untamed, inept, and unfit to be considered a part of the human species. In time, however, the back-breaking burdens that blacks had to bear would prove to be a worth to a people that no amount of money could ever buy. And the world at large would ultimately recognize, as the world turns, they needed the spirit and the gifts that Black America brought to America. We'll be right back.
When you're in need of making the old new again with beautiful upholstery, D. Berry's Upholstery is the best, whether it's automobile interior or exterior, boats, church pews, or any residential or commercial seating and the like. Look no further. D. Berry Upholstery's got you covered. Call D. Berry's at 910-276-2265 and experience new again.
I want to give a special shout out to a young lady who's doing a marvelous work and trying to help people own their own homes. Her name is Denise Smith, Senior Loan Officer with Carrington Mortgage. Her credentials and contact information are on the screen now. Please get it and respond. They have many programs trying to help minorities and people who otherwise would not have the opportunity to own their own home. She is standing for all of us. Thank you, Denise, for all that you have done and will do for those that will be contacting you. Tell Denise J. Gentile Everett asked you to call. Welcome back. Candidly, I am unsure if anyone can effectively and certainly not accurately weigh the practice slavery has had on the social psyche of all Americans. And even today, particularly in the South, the emotional residue of that evil practice continues to be felt. It would be journalistically atrocious and mendacity on steroids if any media group labeled all white people, for an example, as racist, any more than to assert all black people like watermelon and pot liquor. Any general assertions about any racial group is inherently inaccurate because each of us has our own mind, our own thoughts, our own actions, and they are basically held in our own custody. But still, there exist two societies that are virtually every day in and around our communities. As we look at some of the content, for an example, in state constitutions like Mississippi, there was penetrating language that undoubtedly shaped attitudes and opinions about race. This language influenced the way racists felt about themselves and those who did not share their ethnicity. In 1817 and 1832, Mississippi prohibited the state legislature from passing laws designed to free slaves, unless the slaves had committed a distinguished deed to the benefit of the state, or had the consent of the owner, who would monetarily be compensated for the freed slave. It continued. This Constitution restricted state legislatures from ending slavery in their own state by making it impossible, without the full consent of slave owners, to retain laws that made it more difficult for a slave owner to set free their own slave. This represented a shift in the social thinking of that area of the country. The Missouri Compromise of 1820, in which many people began to see slavery not as a great evil as they did in the late 18th century, but rather, in the words of the 19th century South Carolinian Democrat John C. Calhoun, who called it a positive good. Because of this new idea about slavery, and slavery being viewed as a positive good, as opposed to a great evil, the growth and proliferation of slavery dug in deep in the minds and practices of Mississippi life and Southern life in general. In the late 18th century, around the time of the American Revolution, slave owners such as Edward Cole and Robert Carter freed their slaves using the American Enlightenment principles of colonial revolutionaries as their inspiration. They believed all people should be free, and when recognized that all people are human beings and created by God, they should be given the rights of all people. In other words, during this particular time, the ideas about slavery were deeply rooted in the economic advantages of the slave owners and the general comfort of having free labor to serve them and their families seemed to outweigh any moral standard of human decency and goodwill toward all men. What I think is particularly interesting, the slave owners wanted to have the slaves serve them without ever giving them the possibility of being free as they were. They simply believed that the black race was created by God to serve them. That was their only purpose for existing. They did not consider black people becoming more developed in their own particular pursuits of happiness and economic engagement or social interaction or even enlightenment. It is particularly difficult to straighten something when something was created crookedly. It has been said, you only have one chance to make a first impression. And after America started, particularly in the southern states like Mississippi, the Constitution thereof was established, and it addressed slavery as a positive good and a necessary enterprise, undoubtedly for the benefit of the white plantation owners. These ideas were not only practiced during that time, but they were passed down to later generations, and consequently became a part of the social psyche of the children of those plantation owners. Is it because of the damage that slavery has caused on the minds of the citizens in that part of the country why things are the way they are? Is color culture that important? Are qualifications only wrapped in one or two hues of flesh? Does it not exist in all hues? Isn't it wonderful to know that every hue was created by God? And God meant for every hue to contribute to the global community. It's been asked before, what has four eyes but cannot see? Mississippi, is that you? We'll be right back. We are excited to share with you our new office that we just opened in the Washington, Maryland area. The phone number is 301-578-5800. That's 301-578-5800. Everett Media. Please give us a call if there's anything that we can do to help you and your community, or to shed or shine light where there is darkness. You can catch all of the things that we are involved in. Please go to our website. That's jgeverett.com. Follow up with the number that's at the bottom of your screen, and you will be able to stay in touch with us. You can contribute to our causes, and we will have merchandise there for you to purchase. That's Everett Media, 301-578-5800. Welcome back. I wonder, have we thought about the significant role the black preacher has had in the plight of the black community? Whether you are in Mississippi or Maryland or even Maine, the black preacher in the black community has always had a voice crying in the wilderness to give hope to those citizens who thought hope was lost. I want us to take a moment and understand the evolution of the black community and the evolution of the black church, and consider the role of the black minister and who he was and what was he doing when he tried to communicate this heavenly message to human ears and to human conditions. Have we ever considered who was he? What actually happens to him? Is he simply just talking? Is he simply just winging it? Or is there something significantly divine taking place in that moment when he communicates what thus saith the Lord. Let's listen.
To proclaim this gospel, the demand of this moment dictates that the preacher must morph from man to messenger. It is at this time that they are called to a novelistic space that exists somewhere between time and eternity, somewhere between divinity and humanity, and occupy the chasm between sight and sound. What a place it has to be to experience the linkage of the divine mind to the human imagination. This moment is so special. It is delivered on a stage where the great ventriloquist takes on relatable flesh from earth's dust, and the word that comes forth metaphorically is so lofty that it is delivered on a platform commonly called a pulpit. While standing in this space, the human vessel's developed speech subsides, so the voice of God may be uttered through his marred and mangled vocal cords. The preacher used must be clear before he begins to offer this message, that he is an ordinary person with ordinary tendencies, and when this assignment is completed, eerily he will return to the carnal vessel that he is, and that is one so shackled by a fallen state of existence that even when his intentions are good, human sin often fathers his actions. But during this preaching moment, the preacher's will is lost in his aggravating temporal issues are temporarily detached from him because he feels no earthen device. And from that point, all you will hear will come from the metaphysical union of the he in him. The preaching moment draws him nearer to that Old Testament God who said, "Let there be," and everything that was not became everything that was. During the preaching moment, chaos dies and order resurrects. It's like time is suspended and eternity matriculates into the University of Humanity, and graduation to glory becomes envisioned. It is at that moment when the preacher comes to realize that there is nothing from him worth mentioning to anyone. The audience must understand that he is a wretched vessel of clay, and then he's able to communicate, "There's a word from the Lord."
Many will ask, why is there so much clamor in the black church? Why is there so much excitement? Why does the preacher engage in a kind of moment of celebration? Why is there a hoop? Why is all of this necessary? It is because, just like Mississippi, there are other parts of the country where the oppression of blacks, where the depression, where the struggle and the pain have all been so severe that it was the church that provided them an outlet, a place where they could relieve and release in hopes of being able to relax, if only a moment, the next week. What one may call clamor, and unnecessary for that constituency, that service of high praise, those moments of ecstatic behavior served as a kind of incandescent light of hope for those who thought hope existed for them no other place. In other words, it's very difficult to knock what you don't understand, and at the same time, what may seem to be unnecessary for some may be very necessary for another. The role of the Black church in the struggle for Black equality continues, and it always will be. All of the groups that we have now, there is a root that started in the church, and it left the church and has moved out into the civic order of our world. So I say to all of you, before you are quick to condemn and criticize, first ask, what would I be or what would I do if I had to walk a mile in their shoes? I'm going to leave it there. I want to take this time and thank you for joining me on Social Perspectives as we continue to observe Black History Month. Please take into account all that we are trying to share. It is only designed that we might spread enlightenment, energy, and love in all places. Please, everyone, listen and take note of all of the credits that will be on after me. Let's make sure we support them all. They're doing a great service to our community. And we're going to ask you to keep us in your prayers and continue to support us. We need your help. Please send all of your tax-deductible gifts to Renaissance Ministry or our ministry at MDBC, P.O. Box 1078, Fairmont, North Carolina, 28340, or you can cash app us at $capital REN capital MI 15. And you can help our cause continue to serve as a beacon of hope to those in darkness. God bless. I'll see you the next time. I'm J. Gentile Everett. Be safe.